It's the War Report coming live every Tuesday at 7 with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. And the voice of NEW, Vince Berry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT? Handing out SmackDowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here. No safe space, now listen in. Time to hear from some of the greats.
I figured it was a little fitting to do a little Taker music because obviously he is a very big talking point this week. So we will definitely be talking about whether or not we really do feel that The Undertaker has ridden off into the sunset and truly is not going to get back into the ring. There's a lot of shit that went down in the last week that we're going to have to cover. Vince, welcome. Eric, myself, the War Report podcast live. And Vince, I'm going to kick it over to you, brother. Vince, we can't hear you, my friend.
And how about now?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
My touchpad mouse, the battery died. Like it charges, so like I had to just find a cable and plug it in, or else I couldn't. Like that's why I couldn't log in. So I'm here now. But yes, War Report podcast every Tuesday 7 p.m. on Eastern time. Rough couple weeks to be a wrestling fan.
Pretty rough.
Let's say.
Understatement.
Well, I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin because you know there's a couple big size elephants in the room, but I guess we really should start with the bombshell of accusations going on in the wrestling world. There is a lot of background noise, and I don't know who it's from. But it sounds
fix that. It's probably my air conditioner.
That's probably what it is, because it sounds like we're in the middle of the ocean. But you know, I always like to say, you know, innocent until proven guilty, because that's how it should be. You know, but some of the accusations have already been proven. I guess we should really start with AEW and Sammy Guevara, because he's the only one that right away. Now granted, he didn't have much of a fucking choice. You know, the proof was in the pudding, and I don't want anyone to get it at all twisted. At the end of the day, what he did, what he said, there's just no tolerance. It will never be okay. Me being a father to a daughter, you know, it's just there's no talking yourself out of it. Now, on the other hand, and I'm not making any excuses. I don't care how old he was. You know, to me, that doesn't matter. You should be smart enough to know what you're saying is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But what I will say is AEW, in my book, is doing it amazing, by the book, how it should be, suspending him without pay, pending investigations, and him going and getting help, you know. And then
I agree.
And I will say this. He did a video apology. He reached out to Sasha. They talked.
Right.
You know, I give him credit for that. listen, at the end of the day, he fucked up. He owned up to it. He's going to have to, this is one of those we will never ever forget, but we can kind of forgive kind of thing, I guess. But it's going to be a long road.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing. There's a lot of chatter and a lot of proof and screenshots and everything else going on for various people involved in sexual abuse, sexual assault, solicitation of minors, various very nasty things. So it's not, like I said, it's been a rough week or two to be a wrestling fan. On the bright side, if there is a bright side to any of this, when you look at all of the other terrible things that are going on, Sammy's is by default one of the less terrible because, from what I understand, it was an interview from 2016, and he said something along the lines of Sasha looked so good he wanted to assault her or whatever the phrase is.
He said he wanted. Yeah. Well, then all right. Then we know what the word is. At the end of the day,
yes.
That's the word he used. But I will.
A bit more PG here.
I will say this.
Okay. I just wanted to get on here real quick and just say there's going to be no vlog today, and there's going to be no vlog for a while. I'm going to take a hiatus from social media in general. I just want to apologize to anybody I let down, to Sasha, to anybody I hurt with my words. It just sucks because 2016 me is not me today. 2020 me would never say those kind of hurtful things that I did in 2016. I used to think it was funny to do some kind of shock humor to pop the room I'm in, but wait for this ambulance to pass.
Oh, I thought Scott Steiner came in to whoop his ass.
I thought it'd be funny, man, to do that kind of humor, this shock humor, and it's not. I learned along the way. A lot has happened in 4 years of my life. I know a lot of people think 4 years is not that much time, but if you look at how much has happened to me in my life, from wrestling in the middle of nowhere in Texas to wrestling all around the world, to wrestling in different countries, to wrestling on TV for AEW, it's so much has happened to me in 4 years, and one of the things that's happened is me growing, man, as a person. I understand now that the words I say can impact people more than I'll ever understand. They can hurt people more than I'll ever realize. And that's why you will not catch me saying these kind of hurtful things now in 2020. 2016 me is a very different me. And that's not an excuse. I still said those things, and I'll still pay for those things. But that's not me. And I think along these 4 years, more than anything, I feel like what I've done is I've grown as a person, and I've become better. And just know whenever I do come back, I will be better. I'm going to do sensitivity training, and I'm going to be a better version of myself. And so again, sorry for anybody I let down, and to Sasha and to anybody I hurt. I will be back. Until then, take it easy. I'll see you when I see you.
Is that good enough? That's the question.
I think not just by itself is it good enough, but he has. So everything together, I think, has reached the standard to satisfy me as an individual. Whether that satisfies other people, that's up to the individual. But I think AEW's response, as you said, was the best they could do. Sammy has taken personal responsibility for what he said. He didn't dance around it. He did apologize directly to Sasha. He spoke with her. He's doing everything he could to make this right. Now, here's a couple things. If it comes out that Sammy Guevara, by extension, has more things like this out there, or has done some of the other things that the other accused people have, like soliciting underage people, if he tried to, get somebody drunk and have his way with him, if he was groping somebody, if anything like that happened, then obviously I want nothing to do with the guy. If it's a case of somebody who, as he said, was trying to make a joke in an interview, pop the room, get a reaction out of people, I understand it. So as a big fan of stand-up comedy, and I've been following the scene for several years, and I know a fair few of stand-up comics, this is something that's come up in that industry an awful lot. And there's really no solution to it. There are people who make jokes and make light of sexual assault and various things in the news, pedophilia, etc., Jeffrey Epstein, whatever the case may be.
It's a different world now, though, man.
Right. There are those that oppose doing that and say you shouldn't do it and it shouldn't be in comedy. So the comedian Patrice O'Neal, who's passed away, he used to say something that I thought was a great insight into a situation like this. It's intent versus impact. And he would always say this when talking about stand-up comedians making jokes. And I understand that. Here's the problem. Sammy is not a stand-up comedian. He was not in the context of I am doing things and telling jokes now, and this is not serious mode, whatever that may be. There's an understanding that if you're a stand-up comedian on a stage with a microphone, that you are going to say something that may offend somebody because that's the nature of stand-up comedy. It's to kind of take things that are sad or depressing or unfunny or whatever and turn them on their head or give them a different spin or have a different perspective of looking at them. So that's, unfortunately, Sammy thought he was in a position to do that, and he really wasn't, because the context is important, the situation you're in is important, and it was a very, very, very poor choice of words to say. But again, intent versus impact. His intent wasn't
malicious.
What the impact, right? So, and also the impact was different. You know, it wasn't his intent. However, the impact of it ended up being this great big response to it. And I think, based on what I've seen here, that he has some understanding of what he did wrong, and that he seems like he regrets it and he's going to better himself. Now, as I said, it doesn't seem like he's one of these people that is assaulting others. If he is, done. Absolutely, out of wrestling business, call the cops, file a police report, get him to trial, all that stuff.
Right.
If this is just a case of somebody saying something dumb, we are in a very heavy cancel culture world here where people lose their jobs at the drop of a hat. You could like a tweet and have your job lost over liking a tweet, not even posting a tweet, liking a tweet. So everybody's constantly on each other's social media to try and find these slip-ups and things like that. We shouldn't lose sight of there are bad people out there doing bad things, and if you find them, you should report them. But I think as we get more critical of this stuff, we also have to have different standards. Sammy Guevara said something. Some of these people have done some terrible things. If Sammy Guevara said this and he understands now why it's a bad thing to do, and this is not a pattern of continued behavior, I am all for him rehabilitating himself. People say the same thing about Mike Tyson. Oh, well, he's a rapist. He assaults people, whatever. He should, But do we say, well, Mike Tyson, that was 20, 30 years ago, and he served his prison sentence, and since then he seems like he has found help and found a peace within himself, and now he's a better person? Because that's what it seems like. But again, not everybody holds that opinion. So I don't expect everybody to forgive Sammy Guevara. I think there are some people who are probably calling for his job. I think there are just as many people saying, no, Sammy should serve his suspension. Seek the sensitivity training or therapy that AEW is requiring of him. And now coupling that with the action that he took to apologize directly to Sasha, I don't know. I think he's satisfied. At least for now, he's satisfied.
I think he
satisfied.
I think he satisfies once he finishes the training and he does serve the suspension. Absolutely.
Yes.
He's serving his time. On this topic, I am happy to announce, for those of you that are not in the know, you can be a part of the War Report every single week. You can call, leave a message with a question.
That's right.
Or you can text in a question to 845-202-9324. That's 845-202-9324. Beginning or during the podcast, you can do that, and we will talk about it live on the air. And in this topic, we did have somebody reach out. This is David from New York. And he had a detailed question that he hears a lot of women wrestlers in the business getting upset at the term ring rat. I recognize it's a different era, but back then, a lot of girls didn't care and wanted to just bed wrestlers for glamour or prestige, it seems. You fast forward today where Twitter is being used as almost a jury. How do you think we can accurately tell the real stories from the fraudulent? And that's a valid point, because you have a situation like Sammy Guevara We know he's guilty of what he's being accused of, and he's doing what he can to right the wrong, right? But then you have accusations against the bro Matt Riddle. How do we know if it's true or false? There seems to be messages coming out to surface, but at the same time, Riddle has come out and he flat out says that it's bullshit and that he's going to have his own lawyers and the WWE sue this person. So, to
Velveteen Dream too.
Right.
Velveteen Dream, a couple more came out about him. Yeah,
right. So, David from New York is right. How do you tell, the real stories from the fraudulent? He feels bad for the women, but Twitter is almost becoming the jury here. And when does this exactly end cause it's a slippery slope for wrestling right now? And he's right, because, you're, whether it's wrestling or anything else, it's just a regular fucking Joe Schmo on the street. Just the accusation can fuck your life up. Even if you're innocent, Enzo. There is no, right, perfect example, Eric. At the end of the day, you are guilty until proven innocent, and even then it's too late in this society, Yeah,
so this is the idea with it's so difficult because there is a believe all women, believe all victims, and I don't want to discount anyone that comes forward, because the trouble is because when assault is reported, a lot of the times the victim is kind of pressured into dropping it, or they're asked, are you sure, like if they go and report to the police, are you sure you didn't give them any indication that this was okay? That there's sometimes where they don't feel comfortable enough coming forward because there are these questions that surround it. Unfortunately, with the act of accusing somebody comes the burden of proof. That is not just part of the legal system, it is part of common sense in general. If you are accusing somebody, there should be something that someone can reference that will prove your point. I'm not saying that every sexual assault victim should publicly release screenshots or text messages or phone calls or videos or anything like that. That's not my intent. My intention is that the reporting and accusations of sexual assault like this should be normalized in the sense where they shouldn't be criticized necessarily for coming forward, because that trying to filter out the fake ones so stringently sometimes allows true stories to kind of float under the radar because that person didn't feel comfortable reporting it because of all the pressure that surrounds somebody making this accusation.
The problem is, at the end of the day, there are women and men out there that make false and it makes you wonder, well, because at the end of the day, there should never be a question. If a woman comes out and says, or a guy comes out and says this happened, there shouldn't even be that inkling in your head, she could be lying, he could be lying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, it's not.
But there are unfortunately there are shitty people, manipulative people out there.
That's the problem. Right,
and
they fuck it up for everyone else. Going back to David, he's more of an Impact AEW fan, and his 2 cents is that Ryan and Chris deserve to be fired, but Elgin, he thinks, deserves a chance. Sammy's just a case of immaturity, more of locker room guy talk, I feel, but still not right, and I kind of get what he's saying. I
there are definitely levels, because listen, Joey Ryan is accused by several women of like stalking them via text message and stuff, and like asking them for a ride and then touching them during the ride, or like, oh, drop me off at my hotel, and he'll come out of the hotel bathroom naked and shit like that, like, and just straight up assaulting, like getting people drunk and assaulting them. So there's plenty of accusations out there of that nature. I think there's enough with screenshots and stuff like that. Yes, Joey Ryan, David Starr's been accused several times. Those are when you're looking at these stories and then you see the screenshots and the phone calls and all this other things that corroborate it, that's when you can really, have a definitive take on something. I can assume, or we can all assume, based on the information we're giving, whether or not we think other individuals that are accused are guilty or innocent. Jim Cornette's name has been floated out there. As you said, Matt Riddle's name has been floated out there. Those two seem to be on the road to clearing their names by supplying some sort of proof. Jim Cornette has put out a podcast to kind of deny the accusations. The person who was making the accusation said it was related to an incident for OVW in 2017, which Jim Cornette hasn't been involved with OVW since he got fired for slapping Santino in like 2003, 2004. So the whole story just didn't fit. However, I will say, I need this. It's so weird being in the wrestling business because you know some of this shit 10 years before other people know it. I pegged, no. I can't say pegged because then this gets into a whole other territory. When I met Stacy Cornette, I saw Jim interact with Stacy, I understood the situation implicitly from the first time seeing them together. Through various interviews with Jim Cornette and kind of just kicking around the business, I already knew 90% of what these people were saying. Jim and Stacy are into the BDSM community. They're kinky. They like to wife swap. He likes to watch men have sex with his wife, whatever. He's kind of a chubby chaser. He likes big women. Stacy's a big girl. Is it all
like fact?
This is all the relationship with Jim and his wife and them liking to bring others into the relationship. That is all he has said in his podcast.
Because I've met him a few times and I don't get that impression. Guys, I'll be right back. Continue.
All right, so he came out on the podcast and that's what he said, kind of just confirming that they like to fool around in their private lives, and he just the story that the person came out and was asking basically said that Jim Cornette solicited him to sleep with his wife, and in return I'll give you a big push in OVW. Again, the person said it happened in 2017. This physically cannot have happened. If it came out that Jim Cornette was offering sexual favors in exchange for pushes in OVW, I think that's an issue as well, because it's the same thing as your boss saying, hey, if you worked in an office building, hey, if you sleep with my wife and I get to watch, I'll give you a promotion. That can't happen in a real corporation with human resources and the laws that there are. It's called the imbalance of power. If you are in a position that is considered of power and you solicit someone below you on the totem pole in terms of importance in the company for sexual favors, then you, even if it is ends up being a consenting relationship, can be in trouble for it. It's the same thing as teachers and students, not just high school, but I'm saying college professors and college students. There's an implicit imbalance of power where off the rip, the student or the person of less power would feel more pressured or more impressed by this person, or it changes their perception of them because that person has some sort of professional power over them. All that being said, if Jim Cornette solicited people to sleep with his wife in exchange for a push, it's bad. If it's just, hey, I want you to sleep with my wife and can I watch? You just say, no, you old creep, fucking go away. But it's so hard. It's so hard with the way social media is now to even tell and then form an opinion and keep it as an informed opinion. So
I do want to tackle that whole slippery slope thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned the ring rat thing too.
There was a thing I wanted to bring up. Paige's mom, Soraya Knight, has been there were accusations made against her, so much so, and it affected her so much so that she has decided to end her run in the wrestling business. So then that's like, where do you
Yeah. So
this is denying it, obviously, but and it's like, where do you don't know? It sucks.
Yeah, it's there's a hard balance to strike between believing the people that come forward and then also trying to find a way to corroborate their story. One of the weird things is I heard, like, one of the stories that I saw online, a person posted and they said, at the time I wasn't even aware of this even maybe assault, and I've joked about it before and it's really never bothered me, but I thought I'd get this story out there. I was 10 or 11 years old and I was waiting outside a show for autographs, and Soraya came up to me and French kissed me on the mouth and stuck her tongue in my mouth, and I was 10 or 11 years old. And, that person always kind of told it as that, hey, remember that weird time that weird wrestler lady kissed me on the mouth? And now he's like, by the way, this happened, so it may or may not have been her. I don't know. That's a weird thing, too. I wasn't there. I don't know if she made out with some 11-year-old kid waiting for autographs at a wrestling show.
And that's the other thing. None of us were there.
That is the ultimate problem with investigating sexual assault and reporting sexual assault, is that 9 times out of 10, it's 2 people by themselves. And again, one person is too scared to even say anything after it happens. And it just, sometimes the trail goes cold.
The only thing you can really do sitting in our seats is, some of these guys, you're invested in more than others. And you just hope that that it's not true. Like for me, Matt Riddle, I really hope it's not true, because I am a fan. And the fact that he had his debut on SmackDown and took down AJ Styles, not to mention a great promo prior to it, you know what I mean? He's got everything going.
The same day that accusation came out. The same day.
Right. So now does his push get derailed, already, and solely on an accusation. There's there's a lot of back and forth, and like I said, at the end of the day, nobody knows but those 2 that were involved, and we have to just sit back and hope that it's not true.
And if it is true, then it needs to come to light and needs to be addressed.
And everything about Joey Ryan is sexual misconduct. Like everything about him and his gimmick. Like, what I mean?
I mean, listen, the guy did, back in the day, he called his finisher the Duff Drop because he named it after Hillary Duff, who was 15 at the time. And the joke was, oh, look, this weird Joey Ryan sex pervert guy likes this 15-year-old girl, Hannah Montana, Hillary Duff, or whatever the fuck. Well, I don't know what she played. High School Musical. I don't know. I'm old. I never followed Hillary Duff. But, like, the whole gimmick at that time was he was kind of a sex pervert and liked this kid. So he named his finisher the Duff Drop. It's fucking strange, right? Lizzie McGuire, thank you. But that's a strange thing. And it was just kind of like a ha-ha whatever at the time. And now it's like you look back and you go, he was telling us something way back then, and we weren't listening.
Well, how many? Look, how many people made jokes about the Olsen twins years ago?
Right, and I mean, also, yes, there are. You're waiting.
Again, they were horrible. But I'm just saying.
Right, but then there's using your words and then actually assaulting somebody. So there's 2. Both of them can be an offensive or wrong thing, but one is worse than the other. Now that it came out that
there's I guess levels,
yeah. So,
but and again, and I don't want to be that guy, but I'm just saying there does seem to have been like 30 of these things. A couple weeks.
Yeah, it is about 30.
So I mean, I don't know the exact number, but you know what I mean. There's a lot about a lot of the NXT UK people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's not just NXT UK. It is the UK in general. Right. The whole wrestling scene, because it just seems like there was a bunch of creeps there, unfortunately, and now it's coming out like. I'm not going to say any names because I know people, and I'm not going to be that guy. You can look them up online. There's a fair few people from the New England wrestling scene that have been accused over the last couple days, and I've been following those stories.
I mean, look, the whole Dave Lagana from NWA, that.
Dave Lagana's gone. That was from Liz Savage, and I'm Facebook friends with Liz. I had no idea that was even a thing that happened. So. And then there's, one of the guys from New England was a ring announcer, and he got fired from MLW, Major League Wrestling. So, and those were credible. I could, from to a certain extent, accusations, and they released him based on those accusations. And there were a couple others that I've seen. One of the guys seems to be, unfortunately, be Austin Theory, but I don't know for sure. I'm not saying he did or didn't
That
do anything.
just came out like today.
Yes, that is a new
Just
revelation
surfaced.
today. Yeah, so
You
I
know,
don't know.
what bothers me about this is that dragging others into it. For instance, like the whole Joey Ryan thing, Candice LeRae, who was
Yeah.
with him, made some kind of statement, and the people are already jumping on her, saying, "Oh, you probably knew, and why did you say anything?" That I'm like,
And you wouldn't, and that's the thing.
You have to be
wouldn't
dragged into this shit.
know. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't. Here's the thing. If you're assaulting people, I don't think you make that well known. You try to keep that under wraps, and
right, yeah.
Candace was just as ignorant to it as anybody else, because if she knew, she would have said something. Just
You could tell just by the way she is, she would have said something.
and she would have. I mean, I think as a professional wrestler, as a woman, as a human with empathy, if she saw any of that happen, it would have already have come out. So it's a black eye on the wrestling business, because it does, by extension, makes everybody look bad. It is only a few people, but now that all of these stories are coming out at once,
there's more that's
Right.
gonna come out too.
It just falsely makes a lot of these people complicit with or knowing about it, and like kind of like it's not right to bring anybody else in just on accusations.
I have a question.
yeah.
Is the Undertaker really retired?
No. When I will never say he's retired until, unfortunately, a guy dies.
He apparently made a statement on Twitter or something that.
Well, he said
This
at
is
the end of that last episode of The Last Ride.
Well, no, but then he also said something after that, saying that this is officially his ride into the sunset, or whatever. I don't know, man. Like after.
Yeah, and until Prince Allah Abdul Allah Habhul Hun sends him another $100 million check, and then he's gonna lace up the old boots again.
I hope so, man. Like, as much as I don't know, it's so bittersweet, because I'm always the one that's saying, does he need to continue and this and that. But I always also say you still get the same feeling every time you hear the bells and he comes out,
Absolutely.
and it's just like, is this really it? Like,
Yeah. We've all have been fortunate enough to have seen Undertaker's entrance live several times in our lives, and there's nothing like it.
No.
Yeah, he's he's the
Even
light
just watching
once
it
in a
at
lifetime.
home, it's like there's something about it.
Well, that one where you guys were at 29
When he fought Punk, yeah.
when he fought Punk in New York, and that was.
I've seen his entrance more live than any other wrestlers.
Yeah, no, I mean, me too, but I think that one out of all of them was probably the best. I think that was the best one I've seen live.
The best one for me live was when he returned as the Dead Man with Paul,
Mania 20 with the Garden.
with Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer,
Oh,
yeah.
And that,
yeah.
I mean, and you guys have to understand too. I'm sure they I don't know how much they still did it when things were normal, but there was a time where they would pump AC into that room, like
to give you the
3 or
chills.
4 minutes before his entrance was gonna hit, to get you to have the chills, and then those lights go out and you hear the gongs a few times and all the smoke and the fire. It is just the most incredible. It's just it's a shame if it is the end. There's a whole nother generation now that aren't going to be able to experience it live. They'll be able to experience it on the network. But there's something to be said, man, when you're seeing it live. It's just very cool. Wrestling is what it is, but it was always just the Undertaker. Like, my dad was never a fan of wrestling. It just wasn't his thing, but he was a fan of the Undertaker.
Right. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
People
My dad too.
Yeah. I mean, it was the thing is, it was easy to understand, especially back then with wrestling characters when they first came out. you had to sell the image very quickly for people to get on board. You heard the bell. He came out in the thing with the pale face and the little guy holding the urn. You immediately understood what it was about. So I think people who didn't watch wrestling were drawn to somebody like The Undertaker because it was a character that they understood. Like Bret Hart, what was, the hitman, but he didn't come to the ring with a gun. He never shot anybody with a sniper rifle. Shawn Michaels, he posed in Playground and stuff like that, but I don't think he had the same mainstream appeal as The Undertaker for as long as The Undertaker has. If you showed somebody a picture of The Undertaker now at 50 whatever, and you see a picture of Shawn Michaels now at 50 whatever, and you showed them to two people who haven't watched wrestling in a long time, they're going to go, that's The Undertaker. I don't know who that bald guy is. The Undertaker has a lasting look that no matter how many times he changed little things about it, it was him. The presence was there, the entrance was there, the whole deal, the whether it was the Last Ride or the Tombstone or the Hell's Gate or the whatever they had him use.
He was the master of evolving with the business.
Right. And he saw the writing on the wall that this goofy version of The Undertaker that was a legit dead mortician from the Old West, and he lived in a shack and, built coffins out of wood by himself. That wasn't going to work. So he tweaked it and he did different little things to it. And then it was more like a satanic cult thing. And then it was like he did just various little tweaks to it. Then he did the American Badass thing and then found a way to kind of merge the two together. So he was kind of the biker Undertaker, but also came out with his dead man Western inspired stuff on. He was like a little bit of both at one point. So yeah, him and Chris Jericho are the two guys that really get it in terms of changing your gimmick and keeping up with the times.
I'd like to put Matt Hardy in that.
Oh yeah, Matt Hardy, definitely. But there are only a few people. I mean, think about it. Hulk Hogan ever did two things. He did the red and yellow, and he did the black and white. He was very, very good at those two things. But Ultimate Warrior, there was only one version of the Ultimate Warrior, and that's it. There aren't a lot of guys that evolved that much throughout their career when you look at a guy like The Undertaker, a guy like Jericho, a guy like Matt Hardy. John Cena was pretty much the same through his whole career. He just changed T-shirts. And As good of a wrestler as he was, there wasn't much variation in his character.
No, it's true. It's true, but sometimes you didn't really need it back then either.
Right, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
You got people like Mick Foley, and now I would even say Bray Wyatt.
Right, yeah, he's been able to.
Another thing too.
Well, now I'm glad. See, now that's perfect, Eric. That's a nice segue because I did want to talk a little more about SmackDown from last week, and it's funny because I didn't get to watch it live, and I started hearing shit about the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt, and I said, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I said, if the Fiend character is done, I'm out. I'm giving up. And and now it kind of looks like they're going to do, kind of like what they did with Mick Foley. Yeah. And they're going to do the three faces of Bray.
That's what I'm gathering.
And if that's the direction they're going to go, I'm all for it. And that promo he did on SmackDown was so good. I mean, as it always is, but...
Ooh, I just had a thought. What if he comes out as all three gimmicks in the Royal Rumble next year like Foley did years ago?
Oh, jeez.
Whoa. What the hell was that?
I don't know. That sounds like...
it's very ominous.
It sounds like Satan.
No,
sounds like the Fiend is trying to take over the broadcast, but
yeah, Kat, it's your end. I wonder why.
Yeah, that's my kid. That's my kids watching Frozen. Hang on, I'll have them turn it.
Oh, okay, all right, that kind of makes more sense.
So
you want to build a snowman?
So yeah, I think the promo. I mean, listen, Bray's always a home run when it comes to the microphone. So I kind of like what they're doing there, and then we're still gonna get the Fiend. I don't know. I think it's maybe there's still an opportunity for us to finally get Sister Abigail. That's always something that they could work on doing.
And not Bray and drag.
Right. Well, listen, at the end of the day, anything they do with Bray, I think is fucking hilarious, and it's just so well done because he's just that good. He can adapt and just, I've always been a big Wyatt fan, so I'm digging it. I think that's pretty cool.
I also like how Braun sold it as far as his expressions and stuff.
Yeah, so the thing that's interesting about this is Braun is a monster, and the Fiend was a monster, or is a monster, and Braun wasn't afraid of the Fiend. The Fiend didn't have any power over Braun. So Bray had to come up with a different strategy. He knew that the only way he could get under Braun's skin was to go back to the way he was when Bray had control over Braun. And now this is like, not that he's scared necessarily, but Braun is bothered by this now. And that's the opening that Bray Wyatt needed to kind of...
Right. Like Bray tried with the old mask, the old sheet mask, but that didn't really work at the last pay-per-view, and now he's coming up with something like, I got to get to this guy.
Right. It was almost like he saw that the mask, Braun looked at the mask. You know what I mean? Like, he at least acknowledged that it had some kind of meaning, but he still ended up doing what he did, and it didn't end up having that big of an effect. But I think that was kind of pulled
the Daniel Bryan on Bray.
That was the seed that was sown. Was that mask, and now this is that kind of bothered you. Here's something that'll really bother you. Me being, back to my old Bray Wyatt ways.
Just picture Rocky the Squirrel. Here's something you'll really hate.
That's funny.
But
so listen, we got about 15 minutes. We should touch on Raw.
Yeah.
Because Raw, I actually thought was pretty decent overall.
Right.
I mean, it was a championship kind of thing. Let's talk about the War Raiders and Street Profits. I want to start there and see, because I know you haven't been thrilled with this whole, but I think overall, at least I thought it was a great match, and I like the end, where they're all cool, but you're huffing and puffing, Vinnie Mac.
Oh no, I actually haven't. I fell asleep. I'm sorry, I fell asleep during Raw. I literally didn't see it.
You should go back and watch. I mean, it was a great match.
I'll go back and watch that.
The match itself was great.
I will concur. That was actually a very good match, and the ending and everything, the finish thing looked good in that.
That frog splash, the height he got on that frog splash was absolutely insane.
How the hell does he get that high, man? I really don't know.
Well,
that was a loaded statement. Never mind.
So I woke up kind of after Raw went off the air, and I saw that it's Drew McIntyre against Dolph Ziggler for the world title. And then I was like, yeah, I don't need to watch Raw if that's the fucking point of the whole thing. Like, why? They took a guy that was Dolph Ziggler, who was very hot and very over for a short amount of time, and didn't capitalize on it. And now he's a guy that I was a big fan of him, and now I just want him to fucking go away. Because
they only seem to throw him in a title match when he's not hot.
Exactly. And now he's going to come back and go, oh, I'm back and I'm serious about wrestling and I'm not quitting for stand-up comedy or all this other happy horse shit. Dude, do it or don't do it. He's always acting like he's better than wrestling or should be doing something else. Like, if you want to do something else, do something else. Nobody's forcing you to be a pro wrestler. Like when Zack Ryder whined everyone, they're not putting me on Raw. They're not putting me on Raw. Well, they were paying you every week, dum-dum, and now you don't have a job. So how is that tweeting, oh, they didn't book me on Raw? How does that work now? You're done. You don't have a job. It's because you complained on Twitter. I'm sorry. I like Zack Ryder, too, but damn. These guys, the whole thing.
But here's the thing. Like, Stone Cold Steve Austin will come out and say, that a lot of these guys should be pushing more for stuff and standing up for themselves. But where is the line? Where is the line drawn between complaining and
there has to be a constructive.
Twitter's not the line.
I think that's it. I think that's exactly
if you're doing it. If you go and have a meeting with Vince McMahon himself, or Ryder,
yes, I think Well,
He said,
but
"I
the
should
New
have."
Day's done that a lot too.
Listen, at the end of the day, if the first time it's brought up is on Twitter, you're automatically putting Vince McMahon in the WWE in a corner. So they're going to react. You know what I mean? Look at what happened years ago. Ultimate Warrior was supposed to be in the main event, and right before his music hit behind the curtain, he says, "Pay me more money or I'm not going out there."
Yep.
And Vince finally said, "Okay." Warrior went out there, did his thing, came back. Vince fired him and gave him his money.
Right? Yeah, but
You know.
he paid him what he owed him
Yep.
and then fired him.
Yep.
I don't know. I just don't like. We kind of got off track here, but I just don't like the Dolph Ziggler. When you see Dolph Ziggler in the feud, it's the same thing as seeing Baron Corbin. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to go on for fucking ever, and they're not going to win. They might
Right.
win one or two, but they're not. Looking at Drew McIntyre and looking at Dolph Ziggler right now in 2020, this isn't 10 years ago. This is now. You look at those guys and you go, there is a 0.0% chance that Dolph Ziggler wins this match. 0.0.
Yeah. And unless you've been watching religiously like we have in the last few years, you wouldn't have even known that they were, once with each other.
Right.
Like the continuity. I appreciate that.
Oh,
but
that's right. Eric, I'm sorry. This is on me. I totally forgot that they were in the three-man bland together with Baron Corbin or whoever it was.
there was-
Bobby
there
Lashley.
was, no,
Who was it?
well, there was the thing with Lashley. There was
Weren't they in the thing with Braun Strowman
it
too?
was Braun, yeah, against the Shield, like that thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Christ almighty. Like,
But they
see,
fucked
that's
up
the
Braun.
problem. They did all this stuff, and honestly, whatever, it all,
That was even the gimmick of Dolph coming out there, like he said, "I brought you back."
Yeah,
you
he didn't.
oh, shit.
go.
Okay.
Right,
I
he
thought-
explained the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know me, I appreciate little things like continuity. However, it's not enough to be memorable, at least to you.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem.
But maybe
It
that's
wasn't
a
memorable.
problem, though.
Right. And
Kind of the problem.
I mean, but the thing is, they wanted the
Right.
Shield to have a quick reunion. They needed them to get a win, so they put them with three guys that were going to do the job. And that was all it was. Like, it wasn't important enough for me to retain that. Did they? Let me guess. Hold on. I have to guess. That a combination of those guys actually won the tag team titles at one point. Did Drew and Dolph or Drew and Braun or one of those? Did they actually
Just
win
Drew
the
and
tag team?
Dolph.
Drew and Dolph, and I wouldn't have remembered that until he brought it up last night either.
Holy Jesus! Wow. Ugh.
The only thing I remember really about all that is that it completely killed Braun Strowman.
Right, he was super hot as a babyface, and they flipped him again and killed it. Yeah.
Same thing they did to Cesaro in 2014.
Oh my God, they do this with this poor Cesaro guy all the fucking time. Even
He's funny though. He is.
He
funny.
is.
Like,
He's great, but I mean, like, I don't need him with Sami Zayn. I don't need him with Shinsuke Nakamura. I need Cesaro out there wrestling.
I
a
kind of
wrestler,
like.
you know
Well,
what
I
mean?
kind of like what Cesaro did. It's on Raw. Well, I guess you didn't.
You
see
gotta
Raw.
tell me, what did he do? What did he do?
So they just came down and they had a match, or no, they attacked after the match, and then they went to the announce table and Cesaro was screaming 8 years, and this is the respect I get. We win against the tag champions last week, and then no mention of us this week, and this and that. It was a great little kind of like raw, emotional kind of, it was good. It's setting it up for Cesaro to do some shit.
And Graves throwing Cole under the bus. Yeah, Cole.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that they're actually doing something with him now, because he's one of those guys that, Cesaro in any
Incredible.
other era would have been, a world beater, and he's this mid-card guy for them. It's so weird to think they have all these guys under contract that legitimately could be world champions, and it's just like, we have Brock Lesnar be champion for 5 straight years or whatever. Like, these guys didn't get a chance to grow because they were priming Brock to put over Roman, and then that all fell to shit every time they tried it. And now Roman's not even on TV, and a lot of their big names, Daniel Bryan's not on TV, Kevin Owens not on TV, because of this coronavirus stuff. They're forced, which is kind of a good thing. Now they're forced to push these guys, but you just hope that when the other guys come back, they don't go, okay, well, you're just going way back down to the mid card because Roman Reigns is back and Kevin Owens is back. So fuck you, Cesaro, and fuck you, Angel Garza, and all these guys. You know what I mean? I don't want that to happen. These guys need to be on par with Cesaro. Cesaro and those guys need to be on par with the Roman Reigns and the Kevin Owenses when they come back.
No, I agree with you. But listen, we got a few minutes left. Real quick. What are our thoughts of MVP's little clique he's got that he's putting together? I'm loving what they're doing right now. I think it's going to be great.
He made me actually care about Lashley again. Never thought that would happen.
Yeah, Lashley.
That's because he's got
Lana
somebody to
didn't
talk
do a
for
good
him.
job.
That's because he's got somebody to talk for him now.
And he's not with the whole Lana bullshit.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. Bobby Lashley is one of those guys that needs a manager. TNA figured it out a couple years ago when they put them together that MVP and Bobby Lashley are a good fit. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just do that.
Who else was in there? Kenny King or something?
It was Kenny King. It was the Beatdown Clan. Samoa Joe was in it for a little while before Joe left and went to WWE.
Was Moose in there at all?
Well, I think Moose might have been in there. Moose is great. Moose is right now. Moose is carrying around the TNA World Champion, the old belt, and calling himself the TNA World Heavyweight Champion because Tessa has the heavyweight belt, and or their World Championship, or whatever they're calling it. So he's calling himself the TNA Champion, and walking like they had he has a whole gimmick going where he's like, I'm Mr. TNA, and it's like, it happened so many years. TNA's not even TNA anymore, so it's funny to see them pull that out, that he's wearing the old belt. But yeah, Bobby Lashley, and that is a good pairing. And if they do like add Shelton to the group, or if they add a couple other guys to the group, you could I think there's room to take some guys that could be elevated, newer guys, bring in a couple new guys to fit in with MVP and Bobby Lashley, and help them get over too.
But it's just like, if you compare Lana and MVP, it's night and day.
Absolutely. No, Lana's, I don't even know how.
And now Lana's apparently managing Natty, and I don't know, whatever.
What the hell was that shit?
Who cares? Like they should just call them the Who Cares Express. Like, who cares about Natty or who cares about Lana? I'm sorry, they're nice ladies and all that, and I just don't give a shit.
And it's a shame too, because Natty's so good in the ring, but I'm with you. I can't get it. It doesn't matter, heel or face, it does nothing.
I don't understand how she came out of the Anvil's belly. The Anvil birthed her, right? And she got none of the charisma of her. She got the polite Canadian Bret Hart side of the family, and she got none of the Anvil. She needs to be over there, pulling on her goatee and going, I don't know.
She wasn't birthed by the Anvil, unless Jim the Anvil Knightsville had some surgery that we didn't know about, okay?
I thought he just pulled on his goatee until she
That's what the laugh was all those years.
Right, she did try to do, and they did try to have her emulate the laugh when she.
Yeah, I'm saying she just couldn't. That's not her. I know it's not her. So anyway,
look, and I love Charlotte Flair, but she can't woo like Rick. I'm sorry.
Oh no. But
she's off now. She's off now anyway for surgery anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking of Eric. I figure he's going to be so happy. They're not expecting her back until Royal Rumble next year.
Right, so she can
but here's the thing. This is a very important time, I think, for the women's division, for not only the women to step up, but for creative to step up too. Especially with Becky out, with Ronda still not back, and now Charlotte out. That's three stars.
Yeah.
They need to go 100% in with Asuka. They need to maybe do something with Shayna or something.
Well, listen, they're showing they're all in with Asuka. She beat Charlotte, so that's a big thing. So
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that happened. I know, it makes sense that she lost, and I was like, what's she going off of TV? And then it's like, Charlotte's going off of TV. I'm like, oh, all right, so this all makes sense. She's only losing. She only put her over because she had to leave.
The only minor, and this is a minor complaint, the only minor complaint is that I wish they only had Nia attack her afterwards, because then there's that little asterisk with, it's, she was attacked. That's what, like,
Yeah, they don't.
the interview. That's why, maybe that's why Charlotte.
You're reading too much into it. You're giving
Maybe I am,
you're
and
giving
I'm
creative too
nitpicking.
much credit right now.
They
I know, I'm
they
nitpicking,
want her
but
to have outs.
It
They
still
don't.
bothers me.
No, I actually do got to go with Eric on that one a little bit, because the one time that Asuka was able to outright pin Charlotte, and it seemed like it was because of what
I
happened.
think that they could have
Buy
got rid
that.
of that and just had Nia do the thing afterwards. That would have been good enough. And again, and I don't wish injury on it, like if Charlotte's legitimately injured, I don't wish that on anybody. And don't get me wrong, like
we
the
know we're
things that
just
I've
busting your
said,
balls.
it
We're just
seems
busting
like
your balls.
I hate Charlotte Flair. Far from it. I love Charlotte Flair. I just felt like other people need an opportunity too.
They made her the Roman Reigns of the women's division. I get it.
Yeah,
And
was
on that
definitely-
note,
What?
it is top of the hour.
With
she Kat nailed it. So
well, like I said, women's division and creative, everyone's turn to step up right now.
I'm always good for a controversial comment at least once a week. So
I think that was
Well,
spot on.
you missed our controversial things. Well, I mean, not us, but
Oh yeah, you'll have to go and
Controversial
catch up on the
topics, at
first half
least.
of the show.
oh, I was listening. Trust me.
Okay.
Oh boy, yeah. So
All right.
that'll do it for this week, guys. If you're watching live, then you already know we go live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. I don't know, somewhere.
Except,
We're
well,
always live.
not YouTube. Apparently, that's still not working.
God bless you.
Well, thank you.
it
Fucking
will-
YouTube.
It will be up on YouTube before the end of the day, but it is on Facebook Live apparently. So.
All right, great. So Facebook, thank you very much, Mark Zuckerberg. YouTube is having a Ligma era, as in they can Ligma balls. That's the Ligma era that they're going through right now for streaming. So, but if you
Is
want
that
to
a
do,
political term?
yes, that's a medical term actually.
And we also want to thank everyone who's
Head on balls
contributing,
accurate?
everyone who's contributing as far as like asking us questions. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, when you reach out to us over this phone
Interact
number, over
with us.
social media, it definitely helps. Any kind of engagement on social media is great for us. If you go to youtube.com, type in tag me a date and you hit subscribe and hit the bell, that only helps our YouTube channel grow. If you go to @tag me a date on any of our social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., hitting the like button on one of our posts, sharing one of our posts, whatever it may be, every little bit helps. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast audio only, you can go to SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts, and you can find it there. And again, when you hit subscribe, you get the last 5 or 6 weeks, something like that, going directly to your phone after it's uploaded. So when we record on Tuesdays, the audio version goes up on Wednesdays. And again, that helps as well. Basically spreading the word, spreading the awareness, sharing our posts and all that stuff, and liking and subscribing and all that is all part of the social media game nowadays. So every little bit definitely does help us out. We appreciate the likes and the shares, etc. So keep them up. And if you know anybody that is a wrestling fan or would enjoy our podcast, please feel free to reach out and share the link with them. We're always up for some discussion on Twitter. Now that my Twitter's calmed down after last week when one of my posts went viral, so I can talk to people again now. It's safe. But definitely follow us on social media @TagMeADate all over the place. When you go look for the podcast, it's @TagMeADate. And that's it for now. The website is being redesigned and replanned and all that. And once we get into another one of the phases, once Dr. Fauci gives us the okay, we're going to start working on rebuilding the website for us. So check our social media for updates on that. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening or watching. And we'll see you right back here Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of the War Report. Have a nice week.